Hello again, Stove Minders. It's February 19th, 2021. Major League Baseball offseason is winding down. Spring training is beginning. Pitchers and catchers have reported, and deals are being cut last minute. Stuff I'd love to talk about, like the Taijuan Walker contract, Trevor Rosenthal, free agent moves, guys going to new teams. What does it mean? Can't talk about it because of this massive extension the San Diego Padres have granted their shortstop Fernando Tatis Jr. A contract of 14 years, and $340 million. The third largest contract ever in baseball in terms of money, and the longest ever. I'll talk a little bit more about the contract at the end of this video if you're really interested in the financials. And there's not really a ton to talk about just because the exact details and structure of this contract have not been released. All we know is the length, the overall value, and the signing bonus that Tatis got. Like even the yearly value of this, we don't know if it's front-loaded, back-loaded, how that's all structured. Most of this video will be about the campaign, the push by Major League Baseball and the baseball media to elevate Tatis to otherworldly status, to make not just a superstar, but a face of the game, a transcendental athlete on par with LeBron James, with whom Tatis has been compared many times, the least of which because they wear the same jersey number, 23. I look at this whole situation, this whole setup, and I don't think it's possible. I don't think a single baseball player can have the impact a superstar basketball player can have on the field. That's because as the sports media world conveniently ignores, these are two completely different sports. The offense of the Los Angeles Lakers runs through LeBron, right? He controls the ball. He takes the shots. He's not posted below the rim waiting for a rebound. He can carry a team to a championship. That's possible in basketball. No one baseball player can, no matter how good. Tatis, or any hitter, can only bat once every 9 turns in the order. That's usually 5 at-bats a game. Not even every inning. Just look at Mike Trout, and I'll keep coming back to Trout because he was the last previous player to receive this much attention and hype. Trout's Angels never even make the playoffs. Why? Because you can be the best player in the world, but at the end of the day, it's a team game. You need at least 3 other great hitters. You need pitching. Defensively, Tatis is a great shortstop, but if the pitcher who controls the ball, remember, right, the defense starts with the pitcher, if that guy's dealing, Tatis is just standing around watching the show. Now, of course, I'm missing out a huge part of this deal, right? There's more to being a quote-unquote face of baseball than the game itself. A lot more. You got to be out there. You got to have endorsements. You got to be on TV. Or nowadays, you got to be on the internet, on social media. You got to get on billboards. You got to make public appearances. That's a lot to ask of a 22-year-old in Tatis, whose first language is Spanish. Hey, don't get me wrong, he can speak English, but he's not fluent. He does have an accent, and that will make a difference when it comes to effective communication. Probably not that comfortable for Fernando either, having to express himself in a mode that he's not 100% in. I just hope the Padres are aware of this and give this guy all the media training he needs and make sure to double down on what makes him likable. Because remember LeBron, he could have died a hero. Instead, he lived to see himself become the villain. And despite being a hated figure, LeBron remains a superstar. And even if he was as dominant as he is, would it matter if James wasn't in the NBA Finals every year? I mean, MLB has a lot more parity than the NBA. So unless the Padres are in the World Series somewhat regularly, it'll be tough for Tatis to raise his profile among casual followers. And just as an example, I'd like to point out Derek Jeter. Early in his career, He was in the World Series a number of times with the Yankees, that Joe Torre dynasty team, and that really helped him, Jeter, establish himself as a face of the league and as a multi-million-dollar man with a ton of endorsements and great contracts. And look how he managed to parlay that into now he's a co-owner of the Miami Marlins. Back to now. The factor of championship success was also a reason Michael Jordan became a league-changing star for the 1990s NBA. Part of that was also his presence in everyday life. Does Tatis have commercials and social media things lined up? What are his endorsements like? Does he have a shoe deal with actually aesthetic designs that people would buy? Is there a movie coming out? This is the stuff that made MJ a household name. He was on TV regardless of the Bulls playing, and Major League Baseball will need the same out of Tatis. And that is far from easy for a pro baseball player. The MLB schedule is so condensed during the season. I'm talking almost every single day they play a game, that making new in-season promo stuff is rare. MLB teams get their cool photos, like with the guy pointing his bat towards the camera or the pitcher just throwing the ball into his glove again and again. They get that stuff done right about now in spring training before things get too serious. It would take a league-wide shift in approach to marketing if they want Tatis or any star player to put their name out there during the season in a way that wasn't prearranged months ago. And that's, I think, one of the things that's hurt baseball in this new media environment is during the season, midweek, players can't just hop on whatever ESPN show and talk their talk. They're busy. They're very, very busy. They're traveling, they're practicing, they're playing the game. Now, MLB did make a good move in the direction of their christening of Tatis as the face of baseball by putting Tater Tots on the cover of the new MLB The Show. Maybe hoping he can appeal to all those kids in their video games. Hey, he has hair like a SoundCloud rapper. I bet the youth will love that. Not to say Tatis is a contrived personality, but that's what MLB seems to be angling towards. And my main issue with this whole Tatis, the demigod, as the face of baseball is that the league, Major League Baseball, is horrible at marketing itself and its players. Just, god damn it, just looking through the MLB social media, both their main account and Cut 4, which is supposed to be their, like, funner, younger account. A lot of really just half-assed content, really bad photo edits where they're trying to piggyback on the popularity of other sports or trying to make pop culture references. And there's all the comic book art that they keep pushing both during game and on social media. A lot of kid-friendly stuff, which I can kind of understand. But, like, listen, you can't survive when your demographic is strictly little leaguers and 50-year-olds, okay? There's a 40-year age gap in between that MLB is going to have to appeal to. And one of the problems that we as baseball fans have heard about a lot, including from the players themselves, is that the players can't, quote-unquote, be themselves. They can't, there's this very manufactured cookie-cutter image that MLB wants to broadcast to the world, and I think part of that is the reason is a lot of baseball players, a lot of stars in the very recent past have violated the public trust, and this dishonesty it's a deep crisis at the very heart of professional baseball. And there's a lot I could say about this. I mean, I've written down the sanctimoniousness of baseball writers, this holier-than-thou attitude in regards to what is literally a freaking game, a children's game. The willful ignorance, the scrubbing away of history of past stars like Pete Rose, Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, Alex Rodriguez. I understand that these guys cheated, violated the rules, whatever have you. But you never hear about baseball in the 1970s, which, okay, I understand that was like 40 years ago, 50 years ago now almost. Pretty cool era. And the biggest star at the time was Pete Rose. And you literally cannot speak about this guy. You can't speak about one of the greatest players of all time because he bet on games that he managed. You can't talk about the biggest stars of the 90s and the 2000s because they took steroids. And even though Alex Rodriguez has managed to throw himself back into the mix by getting involved in media. Bottom line, baseball needs to embrace the fact that there have always been villains to this game. There have always been assholes in this game. There will continue to be. And people love a good versus evil story. I think they should embrace that. It'll be tough. So on top of the fact that Major League Baseball lies to itself and shuns some of the most important players in the game's history just because they broke the rules, on top of all that is the state of the game itself. Baseball is, believe it or not, slower than ever, partially thanks to the milking of TV ad revenue, freaking commercials. Part of that is the ease at which home runs are hit nowadays. The fact everyone is trying to hit homers, meaning pitchers are going for strikeouts, and thus the three true outcomes of home runs, strikeouts, and walks, situations in which the ball isn't even in play, is dominating the course of the game. It's boring. Even to longtime baseball fans like me, even to Big Papi David Ortiz, who recently spoke out against this phenomenon. Luckily, Tatis is not a straight slugger. He is a legitimately entertaining player to watch. Don't get it twisted. I think Fernando Tatis has the qualities that make a superstar. I think he already is a superstar to a degree. He's flashy, he's exciting, he hits well, he runs well, he plays defense, all-around skills. He's on a good team, an up-and-coming team, but they're going to need to win some titles, and if MLB really wants Tatis to be the face of the game, he's going to need to be more than just the cover athlete for their video game. He's going to need to really get out there and be a cultural mainstay, which is very difficult for anybody in this environment with so many distractions and so much entertainment, and it's going to be even tougher for a young guy whose first language isn't even English. But as I hinted towards a little earlier, part of this is also how Tatis is marketed, because I don't think that he or any player really has a ton of control over how they are presented. And some of the recent quote-unquote next faces of baseball or whatever are all cautionary tales of Major League Baseball completely missing the mark in terms of what makes a player likable and how fans are delivered this. MLB media needs to do a better job. Okay, Bryce Harper, let's start with him. He has the edgy, spazzy, antagonistic style of play. That was never really a part of his marketing push. Mookie Betts, smooth. Okay, he's a bowler from Tennessee. He's a fantastic all-around player, and he's black. Easy for baseball, right? Americans love blacks. Apparently not. Never hear about Mookie, even though he's played with a couple of the biggest teams in baseball, in the Red Sox and the Dodgers. And Mike Trout. I mean, you got to speak to the small-town boy in his heart. Trout could capture the attention of middle America, of people out in the country, a demographic often ignored. So instead, we get some hokey commercials and barely a word on Trout sending golf balls into orbit at the driving range, or anything about his love of weather, or really anything mildly interested that has nothing to do with the game of baseball. MLB really needs to look off the field, because that's what the NBA has done, that's what the NFL has done, and that's clearly who MLB wants to emulate. Fortunately, Tatis and the whole situation reminds me more of Ken Griffey Jr. Both are sons of big leaguers with the same nickname, the Kid, or in Tatis' case, El Nino. And it's no stretch to call Griffey the face of the league in the 90s. At the time, MLB had some clue as to what they were doing marketing-wise, and hopefully Tatis can create the same magic, because let's be honest here, aiming for a Michael Jordan, that's like a once-in-a-century sort of figure. That was a Babe Ruth, okay? A truly transcendental sports star, a celebrity, a man who molded the game in his image. Very tough to emulate. And yeah, baseball needs to change in some way. And listen, there are dozens of great, exciting players in baseball today. Mookie, Christian Yelich, Javier Baez, Cody Bellinger, Francisco Lindor, Aaron Judge, Nolan Arenado, and Trevor Bauer. A gentleman who has said that he wants to be the face of baseball. Yeah, you can't deny Bauer's huge presence on Twitter and YouTube, even though it's smaller than Yu Darvish's. He has taken the initiative where nobody of his caliber has. Love it or hate it, Bauer's need for attention has been good for baseball because it gives us something to talk about besides how good he is at pitching, and it is attracting fans who like YouTube vlogs and kind of Rob Dyrdek type shenanigans. It's awesome that Bauer and the Dodgers will get to face Tatis and the Padres multiple times this season. So why hasn't Bauer been embraced by the writers or the pundits of the league? Maybe because he's insulted them, he's alienated them, and as I said before, the baseball writers can't take any criticism. They take themselves too seriously. Whatever, people love anti-heroes. People love a lot of things that MLB doesn't seem to understand. For example, Zach Greinke, one of the best pitchers of the past decade. Yeah, he's on the spectrum. He's awkward. But watching him pitch is fun. And as Greinke got older, he started having more fun himself, more antics, and people have loved it. Anyway, in conclusion, I don't think Tatis will be the next LeBron. I don't think he will be the LeBron of baseball. I don't think that's even a fair comparison. I think he's primed to be the next Ken Griffey Jr., which is fine because Griffey was the face of baseball for a time, and he did do a lot to the league, and even today people speak of Ken Griffey Jr. in great terms of like, yeah, I grew up in the 90s as a baseball fan. I love the kid. Hopefully Tatis can do the same. I think he can do the same. But Major League Baseball has to look at the bigger picture. They need more than one superstar to talk about. They need to talk about them in a completely different way from how they are now, because clearly most people today are not buying MLB's juvenile, low-budget marketing tactics. If the league really wants things to change in order to compete with the NBA or NFL, there needs to be a change on the field with how the game is played, a change in how it's talked about, and that's on the writers and the broadcasters, and a change in clubhouse culture that would allow players a little more freedom. And that last part will be the hardest, I think, because baseball is inherently a conservative game, an orthodox game, a traditional game. And even then, there's not really so much doubling down on the traditional aspects of it by MLB. They have no clue what they're doing over there. Anyway, the contract, right? That's what this video is supposed to be about. 14 years will take Tatis through his age 35 season, through until the year 2034. Wow, that's the final year of his contract. And there's some who say he hasn't earned it, that he's never played a full season. He basically did in the abbreviated 2020 of 59 out of 60 possible games. He was doing great as a rookie in 2019 before getting hurt. And even though he missed half the season, he still finished third in NL Rookie of the Year voting. Tatis has been hyped since he was a teenager in the minors. And you know what? He's delivered. He's handled all the pressure up to this point. And tip of the cap to Tatis, because there's been a lot of busts in this sport. Tater Toss is not one of them. I just hope that he's ready to take on the challenges that Major League Baseball has bestowed to him to somehow save the sport. But that's not all on Tatis, and if he doesn't succeed, that won't necessarily be his fault. This is something that the league and their cronies need to also figure out. Anyway, over $24 million in salary for Tatis is an enormous raise from the $600,000 he made in 2020. There's one problem here, and it's in general. Now, speaking generally, I'm talking about all the decade-long deals in baseball, of which there have been several in the past 20 years. A lot can happen in 14 years. Right now, ask the Anaheim Angels. How do you feel about having Albert Pujols still on the books, earning however much money he's earning? How do the Detroit Tigers feel about paying Miguel Cabrera $30+ million to be a slightly above average hitter? How do the New York Mets feel about paying Robinson Cano $24 million while he's suspended for the whole season? Remember Prince Fielder's deal? Josh Hamilton, or even Alex Rodriguez, the two mammoth contracts he had. Only time will tell whether or not this was a good investment. I don't want to put anything out there about what could happen to Tatis or what can't happen. Really, I mean, it's 14 years, as I said, a lot can happen. I think that with Tatis' young age, remember he's 22, it's not as risky as some of the other guys I just mentioned whose deals were slated to take them around the age of 40 or more. A lot of those deals were also bad because they were backloaded, and I hope the Padres have learned from those mistakes and they don't pay Tatis down the line more than they would pay him up front. I don't blame the Padres for being all in right now either. This is a really good team. It's a really good team. Their luxury tax payroll is a bit over $200 million, which is still underneath the threshold. And of course, Tatis has been as promised so far. So, it's my little rant there about all that stuff. Next episode, I'll come through talking about some of the other free agent deals that happened. Bye.